everybody, I'm Molly Yeh from Girl Meets Farm, and today I'm gonna show you how to make a rainbow cake. And I'm gonna give you all of my best tips so that you can make a stunning cake right from your own home. Make sure that you have all of the food coloring to match the rainbow, Roy G. Biv style, and then also whip up your favorite vanilla cake batter. Whether it's from a box or from your favorite recipe, I don't care. Just make sure you've got 8 cups of vanilla batter for this recipe. Make it a little bit undermixed though, because once we get our food coloring in, we're gonna complete the mixing process, and we wanna take every step that we can to make sure that we don't overmix our cake batter, because that could lead to a gummy cake. Okay, so to get started, I wanna make sure that my cake pans are prepped first. And if you'd like to use my vanilla cake recipe, you can find it on the app. So grab your pans, get 6 6-inch cake pans. If you don't have 6 of them, you can bake this in batches. It'll still be totally fine. And you can set them all out. I like having everything arranged on the counter just to make it easier and cleaner. And now grease all of your pans so that the cakes don't stick. And then just to make sure that they don't stick to the bottom, I also want you to line the bottoms of the pans with parchment paper that's been cut up so that the rounds fit perfectly in the bottoms of the pan. The last thing I want to happen to you is for you to go through all of this batter mixing process and then bake the cakes and then have a cake stick to the pan. That would be a disaster. Okay, so now let's mix up the batter. So grab your food coloring, and I'm gonna show you a way of doing it where you only have to use 1 spatula to mix up all 6 colors. So grab a rubber spatula and start with the lightest color, your yellow. And I'm using kind of a Dijon gold color. Okay, start with a little bit of food coloring. You can always add more to get the shade that you want. And then just quickly mix up your batter. And again, you want to be careful not to mix it more than you have to. So see what I'm talking about? If you would have mixed the batter fully, when you mix in the food coloring, you would have over-mixed the batter because you really do have to mix it a lot to get the food coloring in. But this way, if you leave the batter a little bit undermixed, you'll get a perfectly textured cake. Okay, now I'm gonna scrape my batter right into one of the pans that's been greased and lined with parchment paper. And then use a small offset or the back of a spoon to spread it out evenly. Okay, now give your spatulas a good scrape. You don't have to worry about getting another spatula or fully cleaning this one off because the next color we're gonna mix up is green, and there's yellow and green, so it all works out. Okay, so I'm using this pretty teal color just because I love this shade. You can use gel food coloring or liquid food coloring. Either will work. I find that there are more gel coloring options available. I have like probably over 100 food colorings. Okay, this looks good. Let's pour our green into the cake pan now. Just scrape it right in. And then use your baby offset to smooth it around. Okay, and then just again, scrape off your spatulas really well. No need to clean them off or get a new spatula. It's okay if a little bit of the green gets into the blue. Okay, 2 colors down. Now let's mix up the blue. And I'm using sky blue here. Okay, I think I want my blue to be a little bit darker, so I'm gonna add more food coloring. I find that with gel food colorings, they take a little bit more than the liquid food colorings as far as saturation of color. This blue is looking great. It's ready for the cake pan. Okay, and I'll spread it around. These are gonna be thin cake layers, but because there's so many of them, that's what we want. Okay, so next I'm going to use this eggplant color, which is a nice dark purple. You guys should get super creative with this too. You don't just have to stick to the rainbow theme. You could do colors of your favorite sports teams, if you're into sports, or your school colors. Purple's all mixed. I'll just get this into my pan. Oh, you could go like super 90s and make a tie-dye cake. And that's just when you don't mix all the food coloring in completely. Next, we're gonna mix up the red. I'm using a darker, almost maroon red. This would be a great homemade birthday cake, especially as a smash cake with like all the different colors around their faces. Truthfully, I feel like my purpose in life is to make Bernie's birthday cakes. I can't wait. Okay, red's looking great. I'm gonna scrape this into my pan. Beautiful. And to smooth this out, I'm just rotating the pan and spreading it out all the way to the edge and trying to get it as even as I can, but it doesn't have to be perfect because in the oven, it'll even out. And now the last color we're gonna mix up is our orange. And I'm using a muted pumpkin-y tone. My best batter tip is you wanna bring your ingredients to room temperature before you combine them. You wanna give the full 3 to 4 minutes to the butter and sugar creaming method so that they get fluffy. Okay, by now your orange should be mixed. Add it to your pan. How gorgeous are all these colors? And look at that, only one spatula. Amazing. Okay, now spread this out. These look great, they're ready to bake. And again, if you only have 2 or 3 6-inch cake pans, just bake this in batches and leave the batter covered at room temperature while you do that. Okay, now I'm gonna transfer these to some pans and that'll just help me get them in the oven and out. And try to allow some space in between them just so that they can bake evenly on all sides. And now these are gonna bake at 350 until a toothpick inserted into the center comes out with just a few crumbs. Start checking them for doneness at 22 minutes. These cakes look so colorful. I am so pleased with how they turned out. Okay, now it's important that the cakes cool fully before we get to frosting. So just let them sit in their pans for 10 minutes and then transfer them to a wire rack so that they can cool completely. And I think I have enough time to organize my sprinkle collection. Welcome to my sprinkle collection. I've got super normal nonpareils, I've got rainbow chips, I've got this beautiful vintage mix. Okay, which one do you guys think that we should put on the rainbow cake? Stars. You know what I'm kind of feeling? Just like these super standard classic nonpareils. And also maybe some gold. That'll just liven things up. I like using a mixture of different sprinkles to get different shapes and colors, so I'm gonna use these nonpareils and these gold bits. Okay, so now that your cakes are fully cooled, it's time to level them. So grab a bowl and also grab a long serrated knife. And by leveling, I just mean that we're gonna saw off the top because see how it's domed? We wanna level it out so that the cakes stack up evenly. Grab your serrated knife, and then you're just gonna gently saw off that dome, going straight across. And then you can rotate it a little bit to help it around. And then once you have the top off, just place it in your cake scrap bowl. Let's go on to the green. Again, place your non-dominant hand just gently on top of the cake horizontally, and then saw with your knife. And then you can rotate it gently, which will help the knife go through. And then once you saw it completely off, you can just lift it up. And then the scraps go in the snack bowl. And the reason we're leveling them is so that when we stack them up with the frosting in between, they stack up perfectly evenly. Oh, I can feel how moist these cakes are. Oh, so moist and good. It definitely also helps here to use a very sharp serrated knife and one that's quite a bit longer than the diameter of the cakes themselves. There are so many things you could do with the scraps other than just eating them straight. You can make cake truffles, you could put them into a milkshake, you could just have them with ice cream. Cake scraps are the best. Okay, now that our cakes are leveled, let's stack them up and frost. Okay, I've got my buttercream here, and I'm using one that I've added some strawberry jam to. I love that little bit of sourness that it adds. You can find this frosting recipe on the app too. And I've also got my rotating cake wheel. So when frosting a cake, it's important to have the proper tools. So at the bare minimum, I would say you'd want a rotating cake stand, a cardboard cake wheel, which you can just cut out yourself from a cardboard box, or you can buy them pre-cut. And I'm gonna stick this down with some tape. And I'm using an 8-inch wheel here. I want it to be a little bit bigger than the cake layers themselves. And then you'll also want some offset spatulas and a bench scraper. So to start frosting, I think I want the purple on top. So I'm gonna start with red. So I'll do red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. Place a blob of frosting in the center of your cardboard cake board, and that's gonna help the first layer stick down. And now center your first layer right on and give it a press. And when you stick down your cardboard cake wheel and your first layer of cake, it's important to get them as centered as possible so that when you frost, it's even. Okay, I also like to use an ice cream scoop to ensure that I'm getting the same amount of frosting in between all the layers. So I'm gonna add 2 plops of frosting right to the center. And you can use any frosting, store-bought works. I'm using just my go-to American buttercream. It's rich and creamy. And now just take your offset spatula and spread the frosting all the way to the edge, and you want it to even go over the edge, and you'll see why in a second. I'm going kind of back and forth, and just take your time with this. Okay, so now that I've got an even layer of frosting all over the top of my first layer, and you can see it's hanging over the sides, now I'm gonna add my second layer of cake. Don't forget to take off the parchment from the bottom. And now I'm gonna put this face down because this bottom layer of the cake is actually easier to frost, so you'll get less crumbs that way. And now bend over to eye level to make sure that the layers are perfectly lined up. The frosting that's smushing out the sides, eventually we're gonna smooth it down. It's much easier to do that than it is to try to get frosting in between the layers if we hadn't have pushed the frosting all the way out. Okay, now I'm gonna add 2 more scoops of frosting. So frosting cakes takes a lot of practice. I first learned when I was working at a bakery in town here, and I would just spend my entire shift frosting cakes. The thing is, practice makes perfect. You guys have this. And I'm using my other hand here just to rotate my cake wheel to help me out, to make sure that it's even all the way around. Okay, let me get the next layer on. And again, I'm putting it face down. And now another 2 scoops of frosting. This is gonna be so pretty once it's cut into. Okay, another layer of frosting. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue. And the last layer of purple, or violet, or a G-bib. Look how pretty this is. Check this out. So now that all of my layers are on and I have a bunch of frosting swooshing out the sides, I'm gonna do one of these and rotate the cake as I smush it all down. And my offset spatula is kind of staying in place. All right, and now that I have these holes here, I can just scrape off my spatula and then scoop some back up with the end and then fill in the holes. And then I'll smooth it down with the straight edge of the spatula. You can get it mostly smooth with your large offset spatula, but then you can use your bench scraper to fine tune that smoothness. So use one hand to turn the turntable while the other hand stays relatively in place, scraping down the frosting. And then you can keep on going around, just lightly scraping off the top layers of the frosting so that it's smooth. Okay. Now, once you have your sides where you want them to be, you can work on the top. And for that, you can take your big offset spatula and just smooth all of this frosting down, sweeping it across the top. Wipe off your spatula in between sweeps. But I love to just take the time to smooth out the frosting and get it as smooth as I possibly can on top. Okay. How you doing? You looking good? All right, when your cake is smooth, it's time to decorate and go sprinkle crazy. Here I go. And let's finish with some gold sprinkles. Okay, this rainbow cake is a showstopper, and wait until we cut into it. All right, so anytime you're serving a cake, you want to serve it at room temperature. The texture is going to be best that way. Let me grab a knife. And I'm going to wet my knife a little bit because it helps get cleaner cuts. Grab a plate. And now cut straight down. This is the scariest part. And with these tall cakes, it's especially important to make sure that the knife is going straight down and it's not tilted. We're doing great. I'm nervous and excited. Cut all the way down and then slip the knife under the bottom. The moment of truth. It worked! Yay! Look at this gorgeous rainbow. How beautiful. Okay, we've got to taste this now. It's almost too pretty to eat, but just almost. So sweet, so moist and dense, and that strawberry frosting is the perfect touch. All right, you guys, with a little practice and some patience, you are going to nail this rainbow cake and impress all your friends.